welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my kitchen. This week's video is going to be a compilation of some of the dinners that we cooked this week. It's not every single night of dinner because we had leftovers a couple nights and ate out once, but it covers most of the meals that we ate this week that are mostly from scratch, good home cooking. I'm no fancy chef, but we like to eat good food and that has good ingredients. So just some meal ideas for inspiration if you're struggling with ideas of what to cook or struggling with ideas for dinner that don't take too long to pull together. My husband and I both work full-time, so we have to do meals that don't take too long when we get home from work because we want to eat quickly because we're usually starving by the time we get home. So without further ado, walk through some weekly meals with me, and I hope that it gives you some inspiration for some meals for your own kitchen. So the first meal for the week was a homemade beef stew, which for our continuing cold winter days just hits the spot. It's so comforting, so warming, it makes great leftovers. It's just always a good idea. It's one of my absolute favorites. So the base of my beef stew, and the biggest part of my beef stew, is always a lot of potatoes. We love potatoes. You just can't go wrong, and they are such comforting food. And yes, my husband is a giant dork, but I absolutely love him, and he does always keep me laughing. So I peeled and chopped a bunch of potatoes. I always give the potatoes a second rinse after they are peeled just to make sure I get all of the dirt off and make sure that they're totally clean before chopping and then adding them to whatever it is that I'm making. I don't follow a very defined recipe when making a meal like this. I kind of just go with the basics, add what seems right, and keep adding seasoning and things until it's the taste that I want and that we like. I added extra veggies just using a bag of frozen mixed veggies. I think it was carrots, green beans, and peas. Then this lovely bone broth that I had made the day before in the crock pot. I just put some beef soup bones, some veggies, and a bunch of water in the crock pot for like 16 hours, and it made this gorgeous, gorgeous broth full of so much nutrients. That jiggle you see is actually a really good thing because it means that a lot of the collagen and nutrients came out of the bones into the broth. So really, really healthy liquid base for my soup, added so many nutrients, and I'm so happy to be able to do that. That was one of my first times making homemade broth, so it turned out really good and I'm really happy. I add just a little bit of flour. It just helps thicken everything together. The taste of the flour will cook out because this is going to simmer for quite a while. A little bit of water. So the way I did my beef for the beef stew is I took a small beef roast that I had in the freezer. I just threw it right in the crock pot frozen in the morning and let it cook all day with a little bit of seasoning in there. I used a little bit of bouillon base. And then once it was all cooked through and super tender, I just chopped it up into little bite-sized pieces to be able to add to the stew. I really like to do it this way because then the beef gets super tender and super flavorful, but my actual cooking time of the stew doesn't have to be as long to cook the beef through to the way that we want it to be. So it's kind of a hybrid, cooking in the crock pot and then also cooking on the stovetop, but the end result is fantastic. And it's pretty low maintenance, which I appreciate. A few extra seasonings, a little bit of onion powder, a little bit of garlic powder. Stir it all together. Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire? Do you say Worcestershire or do you say something different? I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I'm going with it. A little bit of tomato paste helps to thicken, a little extra flavor. And then I just let this simmer. So this is what it looked like before I simmered it, and basically I just needed all of these veggies to get soft and cooked through and have everything really come together. I let it simmer on a medium-low heat for 15-20 minutes, and then we had this gorgeous, gorgeous stew. So flavorful, so comforting, so warming, and so much good nutrition in there. The second meal I made this week was the Tock pasta, or a variation of the Tock pasta that worked better for our taste buds and what we happen to have in the house. So if you don't know, this is a really easy meal that took over TikTok back a couple years ago. I've never made it before. I'm not sure why, I just hadn't. So I started with some chopped sausage. I love this sausage. And yes, Gracie the Golden wanted a little bit of sausage, but it's a really good pre-cooked sausage. It has really good flavor, good ingredients. It's such an easy base for a quick and easy meal when I haven't had time to thaw meat. So I was using this as the meat in the pasta. It's gonna cook together in this pan with some olive oil. Then the Boursin cheese, which is just like a soft cheese with some flavoring to it. The Tock pasta is usually made with a block of feta, but I don't particularly care for feta, so this was a substitution that I saw in a couple different videos, so I thought I'd give it a try. I added the sausage in around the cheese, and then this is gonna go in the oven. It went about 20 minutes at 350 in the oven. A little more oil. So this pasta is usually the feta cheese and then cherry tomatoes around there, but I didn't have cherry tomatoes and we don't like feta, so this is what I went with instead. I used bow tie pasta and just got that on to boil while the meat and cheese was in the oven. Always salt your pasta water. Looking good. My veggie side with this was just some frozen broccoli that I threw in the microwave. Super easy, but broccoli always goes really nicely with pasta, so it was just a quick, simple way to make this come together after work, and so we could get dinner on the table. When I pulled that out, everything was warmed through. The sausage had a nice kind of crisp on it, and the cheese was nice and soft. I used my handy dandy little straining tool to strain off the pasta, and then the pasta is going to get added right in the baking dish with the cheese and the sausage, and you just mix it around until the pasta is fully coated. This was such an easy meal for after a long day at work. Just came together so fast, so little prep, and it ended up being so yummy. This will definitely be getting added into our meal rotation. Broccoli came out of the microwave, ready to go. Just put that on the plate, and I added a little bit of salt. I like doing frozen veggies because they're usually frozen at the peak of freshness right out of the field, so it makes for a really nutritious side, and it's just so easy. And when you work full time and have as much on your plate as we do, easy and healthy is what we're looking for. I did top the pasta with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, which was perfect addition. Parmesan is always a good idea. Look how gorgeous this is. The cheese coated over everything perfectly. It was just warm and comforting, such a great flavor. We will definitely be making this again. My husband requested that this comes back to the weekly meal rotation because he liked it so much. So highly suggest this. Thank you, TikTok. Next up was homemade beef stroganoff. This is my grandma's recipe. It is a family favorite. Everyone loves Grandma Jean's beef stroganoff. So every time I make it, I think of her, and though mine is not nearly as good as hers is, it still gets the job done, and it is one of our favorite meals to do. So I started off by putting a small beef roast in the crock pot, just like I did with the beef stew. I threw it right in the crock pot, frozen in the morning, so this is like no prep. You don't even have to remember to thaw the beef. Let it cook all day with a little bit of seasoning and water in with it. And then by the time I was ready to cook dinner, I had a beautiful tender roast ready to go. I just cut it down into smaller bite-sized pieces to go into the sauce, and it just it goes so nicely with it. We really prefer to do this instead of using ground beef. Just our personal preference, we prefer this flavor and this style of beef. Next, I put a half a stick of butter in a skillet on the stove, let that melt down. This is going to be the base of the sauce. I also have water boiling, and that is going to be for the egg noodles. Once the butter's melted, I have to prep my mushrooms. I forgot I add mushrooms. So I just took a can of mushrooms, drained them, and then those are going to get added into this butter in just a second. But first I'm going to add a little bit of flour to make it a roux, which just thickens the sauce up nicely. So just bringing that butter and flour together and cook that through. My husband and I usually cook dinner together, or at least talk while we're cooking dinner. It's a nice time to catch up from our day, talk through what's going on in life and at work, and it's just a nice time to have together. There go the mushrooms. So those mushrooms are starting to cook down and get a little more brown. Time for the pasta to go in the water. Just using egg noodles. Salt that pasta water always. Next, I added some water to the butter and mushroom mixture, as well as some beef bouillon base, which adds just a really nice flavor. Just kind of stir all of that together in the skillet. Check on the pasta, see how that's doing. It was a big bag of egg noodles, so it took a little while to cook. Once the mushrooms are cooked down sufficiently, I add in the beef to that sauce starter. It's going to add even more flavor and just start to really cook together and make the base of our sauce. I didn't like the thickness of the sauce, so I added in a little bit more butter. This is not a butter light meal, it's a butter heavy meal. And then that sauce I just kind of keep stirring regularly to keep everything moving and make sure nothing burns. Puppy helpers are there always, especially when there's beef involved. They're always hopeful for a snack. Check that pasta, see if it's ready. Still need it a few more minutes. The bulk of the prep on this is just stirring and making sure nothing burns. Off to drain the pasta with my nifty little pasta draining tool that goes right on the pot. I will link that below. It's one of my favorite kitchen items, along with the double oven mitt you see me using all the time. Last addition to the sauce is going to be sour cream, and that's what gives it the cream and texture and just really brings it all together. You cannot skip the sour cream in beef stroganoff, in my humble opinion. So that comes, I turn the heat off and just let this all come together and make sure that I get the sauce nice and smooth and all mixed together. I wish you could smell through YouTube because it's just one of my favorite smells in the whole world. Absolutely love this meal. Taste test. Perfect. And then I put that in the pot right over the noodles and just mix everything together. And then it was all ready to serve. Delicious, comforting, it's so yummy. You cannot go wrong with this meal in my opinion. It is one of my absolute favorites. And with that, that's the end of our dinners for the week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some good inspiration and stop back again sometime soon.